Well, hello, I'm Joe Spina, and welcome to The Joe Show, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, set as we see it, and frankly as well. Welcome to Biden's Build Back Better. Ronald Reagan famously said to Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. By that, he meant the wall that separated East from West Berlin. In other words, Germans from Germans. Trump fought tooth and nail to build a wall on the southern border to stop the flow of migrants and illegal drugs from entering the United States. He argued that a nation with no borders is unsustainable and is, in fact, no nation at all. It can never be a nation. It is borders that defines a nation. Trump's wall separated Americans from non-Americans, infinitely different than what Reagan was talking about. Well, Biden sees things differently. Instead of building better, figuratively, he tore down what Trump had built walls for the worse. Our southern border, as we speak, is wide open, and a tsunami of migrants and illegal drugs are free flowing into the United States unabated, along with a host of untended diseases. They're not being tested for COVID. We have no idea where they're being shipped off to. So it's really a crisis of epic proportions. And it's been brewing on our southern border from day one. He practically invited the migrants to come. In fact, by the way, understand something carefully. It's not just folks from Central America who are trying to enter the United States seeking economic advantage. My parents did the same legally. These folks coming from all over the world. They're flying in from wherever and landing in Mexico because they know the borders are porous. Two of the largest areas from which unaccompanied minors and illegals, well, however you want to phrase them, are coming is from Colombia and Venezuela. And obviously, we all know why they came from Venezuela, because guess what? Socialism doesn't work. So why does anybody listen to Bernie Sanders or AOC? Cuba. It's another example of the failure of socialism. For that matter, the Soviet Union. And if China didn't adopt capitalism, they'd be in a basket case too. So why is it that there's this love affair or this fixation, Bernie Sanders, that socialism is somehow some type of wonderful, wonderful it is not. It is the death of individual liberties, the formation of wealth, personal property, and on it goes. In any case, a crisis of epic proportions is brewing on our southern border. That's a fact. Yet inexplicably, neither President Biden nor Vice President Harris has visited the border, or that, for that matter, has even acknowledged that there is, in fact, a border crisis. And here's the really bad part, the insidiousness of it all. The press has remained silent. Trump built America energy independence. In fact, I believe in my lifetime, that's the first time that's ever been. We did not rely on foreign or Saudi Arabia or Venezuela or anybody to supply us with oil and petroleum, which, by the way, is a national security issue also. So it was a wonderful thing. So what does Biden do with his Build Back Better plan? Right off the get-go, day one, he shuts down the Keystone Pipeline. Now, over and above the fact that that puts a dagger into our independence, energy independence, it simultaneously wiped out 11,000 high-paying blue-collar jobs. Listen to this. It wiped out 11,000 in one stroke of the pen, jobs, high-paying jobs. Now, here's the irony of it all. They were supposed to have produced 1 million jobs last month. That was the projection. In effect, they produced 260,000, way under. There are 8.1 million jobs to be filled. And employers can't find people to fill the jobs. This is the Build Back Better plan that Biden's talking about. I mean, it's insane. People are being paid more to stay home than to go to work. So naturally, I would myself. I mean, I'm not knocking it. That's a good value judgment that someone makes. Why should I work when I get paid for not working? And there's nothing insidious, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that, bad policy. Now, if you've been to the pump, the price of gas is going up, and it's not going up gradually. It's going up in big numbers, just like it did under Obama, by the way, which prompted the Secretary of Energy, Granholm, reminiscent of Marie Antoinette, the Queen of France, who famously said, when the ordinary Frenchman was starving to death for lack of bread, Marie Antoinette said, well, let them eat cake. Well, Senator Granholm quipped in response to the hacker-forced shutdown of the Colonial Pipeline, which produces or provides 45% of all of the energy needs of the East. When that got shut down, in fact, they're completely out of gas in many gas stations in the southeastern part of the United States. And here's her quip. Here's her little Marie Antoinette. Well, if you drove an electric car, the gas crisis wouldn't be affecting you. Don't you like that answer? But she fails to tell you how you're going to charge up your car with the batteries unless you use fossil fuels or petroleum in order to generate. I mean, it's unbelievable. And people buy into it. Trump had fashioned historic peace agreements with Israel and a number of Arab states. I mean, it was really something. Nobody or everybody applauded it. What about ISIS? ISIS was no more. Trump completely got rid of ISIS. And Iran fundamentally was contained. They weren't on a fast track to produce a nuclear bomb. And their activities as the #1 state sponsor of terrorism was pretty much curtailed. Not anymore. As we speak, Hamas is firing rockets left and right into Israel. And by the way, those rockets and the technology to fire those rockets came from, guess who? Iran. And so what had been stabilized, the Middle East under Trump and the Trump administration, is now right back to the way it was under Obama, on fire. Remember the Arab Spring? Remember Benghazi, the rise of ISIS, the beginning of the migrant movements into Europe and all over the world because of what was happening in the Middle East? Well, it's all about to happen all over again. Today, under Biden's Build Back Better, Hamas is firing, as I mentioned, hundreds of rockets provided by Iran to destabilize the Middle East. And Iran is back on its ascendancy again. So much for Build Back Better. Now let's get to taxes. We all know that Trump cut taxes rather dramatically. And consequently, the economy boomed. As a matter of fact, the stock market went off the charts, and much that took place during the pandemic would have been infinitely worse had it not been for the underpinnings of the Trump economic miracle, you could call it. What does Biden do right off the get-go? And by the way, think about this. Those economic gains under President Trump were not realized by the upper 1%, as they like to say all the time, this class warfare nonsense. The great beneficiaries were minorities, particularly Black men, and also women, who did tremendously well, great gains during the Trump economic policies. They were unprecedented economic gains. Now, what does Build Back Better want to do? I'll tell you what they want to do. They want to spend $6 trillion, big ones, $6 trillion. And here's the best one. With a straight face, President Biden gets on TV and he says, guess what, folks? I'm going to spend $6 trillion, but it's not going to cost you one penny. I'm not going to raise taxes on anybody that earns less than $400,000 a year. Only those fat cats, that upper 1%, they're going to pay the whole freight. There aren't enough of them, but that's beside the point. Now, the fact that no one making under $400,000 going to pay a penny more in taxes is singularly the biggest big lie of all times. And as usual, the press is silent. The most insidious tax, I'm using that word insidious a little too much, or the worst tax, the baddest of the bad, happens to be inflation. Now, the middle class and those on fixed incomes, as I am, and as many of you are, or anybody who's retired, is going to get whacked, and I mean whacked. It doesn't affect the upper class because they can hedge all over the place, but it wipes out any wealth creation made by the middle class because your cost for goods and services is going to go off the chart and your dollar is going to become worthless. They're just going to flood the economy with funny money, just print it all up, monopoly money, and it's going to be worthless. So beware of what the economic consequences are downstream. As a matter of fact, if you took a look at the stock market this week, it's tanking like crazy in anticipation of inflation. Now, if you think that I'm making up numbers, I'm talking, pulling things out of the sky, the Department of Labor, since it began calculating such data, pointed out, and here's a devastating fact, that the price of goods and services today compared to last year at this time have gone up 6.2%. That's a big, big jump. As a matter of fact, that's the largest single gain since the Department of Labor began calculating such data. That is an economic crisis in the works. So let's take a look at Biden's Build Back Better. We have a crisis at the border. We have a crisis at the gas pump. We have a crisis in the Middle East. We have an economic crisis brewing. So welcome to Biden's Build Back Better plan. Meanwhile, the press stays silent, but we don't. Think about it.